The psalmist says how good it is when sisters and brothers sit down at a table together. And I'm really just feeling such good, positive energy with you all here tonight. And I want to say thank you for coming. My name is Michael Spath, and I'm the Executive Director of the Indiana Center for Middle East Peace. And welcome to our first program of the 2014-2015 year. Now, we're entering into our 10th year, as a matter of fact, and it promises to be our best year yet. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you to Plymouth Church, Pastor John Gardner and Pastor Ruth Phillips, and to let you know that the bathrooms are just right outside those doors there. And the men's room is closest on your left, and then down the hallway a little bit, the women's room is down the hallway as well. The other very special thank you I want to give is to Suha Bassi and to her friends Lamis, Iman, and Hima for the wonderful, wonderful food tonight. We're just, we're very, very grateful for just this extra touch for our evening and for our kickoff program. The mission of the Indiana Center for Middle East Peace is to educate, engage, and empower for peace, justice, and human rights, locally and globally. And we've been growing into that mission over the last 9 years. Lots has happened since we were last together. We're gathering tonight, of course, on the 13th anniversary of the attacks, September 11th, 2001. The Presbyterian Church USA General Assembly this past June passed by 7 votes a resolution that endorsed divestment from 3 U.S. companies benefiting from the Israeli occupation of Palestine: Motorola Solutions, Hewlett-Packard, and Caterpillar. After a terribly dark and painful summer of more than 2,100 people killed in Israel's siege on Gaza. By the way, we recently observed a vigil and lament for Gaza where we read, over at Lakeside Park, we read the names of the children 12 and under who had been killed. There were more than 300, and it took us 50 minutes to read the names. We also held a benefit dinner for the people of Gaza, and we raised more than $18,000 for two organizations that are delivering direct services to the people in Gaza. This was a dark, terribly dark summer. In the recent news, just hours after the Gaza ceasefire, Israel's confiscation of almost 1,000 acres of Palestinian land between Jerusalem and Hebron, near Bethlehem. Those of you who've gone on my trips with me have driven. We've driven on part of those roads, part of that land. And then in the broader Middle East, with the rise of ISIL in the President's speech last night. Our work at the Indiana Center for Middle East Peace is needed now more than ever. And as our board has met, we're dedicated now more than ever to our work for justice, peace, and human rights. We're very excited about our fall program to come, and we have even bigger plans for 2015. We're so appreciative of your friendship. We do not take you for granted, believe me, and we covet your friendship. Each one of you, your participation, your presence tonight, and throughout the year, and your support in so many different ways. We will be asking even more of you in your support for our work in the coming months. So thank you in advance for your partnership with us. We're making a difference here in our region. 5 of us from our board just, when was it, Fred? Yesterday, met with Senator Donnelly's representative here in town to advocate for Augusta Victoria Hospital, owned and operated by the Lutheran World Federation on the Mount of Olives, whose monies have been cut off. And those of you who have been with me on my trips have been to Augusta Victoria and met our friend Reverend Mark Brown there. So we are making a difference in the region. Please make sure there are flyers all around tonight. Please make sure you take a flyer with you of our fall programs. In the next month, just in the next month, Thursday, September 25th, we'll be showing here in this room the very moving film, Where Should the Birds Fly? We've heard so much about Gaza, and yet we don't know much about Gaza. The last time I was in Gaza was 2006. And I would imagine that most of us haven't been to Gaza. There's so much misinformation about what it is, about the people who live there. The film, Where Should the Birds Fly, is about the aftermath of Israel's 2008 Operation Cast Lead. And the woman filmmaker is a survivor of the siege. Thursday, October 9th, we have our good friend, Dr. David Wass. David, good to see you and Becky here tonight. David's the retired chair of the History Department at Manchester University, and he'll be talking about ISIS, Syria, Iraq, and American foreign policy in the region. Right? There's always a surprise with David, but yes, David, thank you, and thanks for being here. Becky, it's great to see you. Saturday, October 25th, and let me make a particular pitch for our annual gala. Our speaker this year was a partner with Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Reverend Dr. Alan Busak. We're excited about having Alan here to talk about the connections between his experience as an anti-apartheid activist in South Africa, the civil rights movement here in the U.S., and what's happening today in the Middle East. There are tickets for sale here tonight. Please stop on your way out at our table and buy a ticket, pick up a flyer, pick up a poster, consider becoming a benefactor for the event, and please invite some friends to come with you. And next year, just for those of you who might be interested, next year I'm leading 3 trips. The first in April, a humanitarian aid trip to the Zaatari Syrian refugee camp in northern Jordan. It's the 3rd largest city in Jordan, 120,000 people. I'm working out the details as we speak about that trip, and in the next week or so I'll have all the details to be able to share with you. The second trip in June, our annual Study in Solidarity tour, it'll be my 10th Study in Solidarity tour that I've led to Palestine and Israel. And I know a number of you have been with me on that trip and have found it, well, life-transforming. And the third in July, a little different, but it'll be a wonderful trip to what we're calling Mystical Turkey. So we hope that you'll be able to join us on one of those. And there's more that you can read about on the flyer. I said that we were going to invite you to partner with us even more. There's some clipboards. I've had some in the back and have some in the front, and if you pass them around, we want to gather some information. Please help us advertise our events by forwarding the announcements I send to you in email.
Just put your email
If you use Facebook,
if you can do one
if you
of
use
those,
Facebook,
put your
please
email.
like us, Indiana Center for Middle East Peace, and share our Facebook announcements with your friends. Again, please join us at the gala, invite your friends, and consider becoming a benefactor. The clipboards that we're passing around have a number of categories, and if any of them apply to you, please write your name and legibly write your email address and phone number. We need hosts to help us with our monthly programs, as well as volunteers to help bring treats and drinks. And so if that's something you feel like you could do, we'd really appreciate it. We're going to be offering a 6 to 8 week class this fall using materials developed by the Presbyterian Church, written by Christians, Jews, and Muslims. So if you're interested in such a class, put your name and information on the sheet there as well. In the winter and spring after the new year, in addition to a public showing of a couple of our films, we're also asking for volunteers who would be open to inviting 8 to 10 people into their homes for a home showing of the films. And if that's something you'd be interested and open to doing, we'd really like for you to volunteer to do that. There's, if you're interested in any of the trips, please list your name there. We're going to have some information meetings the week of October the 13th on all the trips. And if you'd like to be on our email list to get regular news updates as well as announcements for our upcoming programs, please let us know that too. And finally, there's olive oil for sale on the table in the back from the farms outside Ramallah. And our good friend Ellen Marine, her brother Jim Harb, is our supplier. So Father Corey, thank you for the visual aid. If you find our events and mailings to be helpful to you, please partner with us even further by making a financial contribution. Perhaps a monthly commitment to our work, as well as to our peacemaking partners in Bethlehem. Just like it's been from the very start when we began 9 years ago. I remember Patty Pendleton and John Detraz and myself, we kind of started this off together. The only way we're able to do what we do and offer the kind of quality programs that we offer is because of your generous financial support, and so thank you in advance for that. All right, so tonight's program. It's an important program, I think. We're really delighted to welcome one of the most prominent physicians in Fort Wayne and Allen County to speak tonight, radiologist Dr. Fouad Halaby, to tell his family story of becoming refugees in 1948, their immigration to this country, and his move to Fort Wayne. And Fouad, I have to tell you, a number of folks came in tonight and they said, I haven't seen Fouad in this many years, and so it's a good time to catch up with him. And there are a lot of people who came tonight because you're here. And how smart does that make me to invite you to come? You know? Anyway, we're delighted to have Dr. Halaby here tonight. We also have businessman and entrepreneur, Mr. Amar Masri, whose family was originally from Nablus, or is from Nablus, a refugee from 1967-68. And finally, a more recent immigrant by way of Qatar, Dr. Ahmed Abdelmageed, a professor at Manchester University's College of Pharmacy. We're going to ask each one of them to speak, and then we'll have some time for questions after all their remarks are done. There'll be a panel, and they'll take some questions from the audience. We're excited about having these three distinguished Palestinian-Americans with us, citizens of our community, to tell their stories of refugee, immigration, challenges and dreams, and what it means to be a Palestinian-American in Fort Wayne and Allen County. So thank you all for being here tonight, and Dr. Halaby, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, very much. I don't know where to start. I have had. Okay,
You might have to hold it. This is about as close as you can.
Yeah. I've had a very fortunate life. Very little pain, a lot of good fortune, a lot of happiness. In 1948, when the conflict arose between the Zionists in Palestine and the indigenous population, I was then only 14 years old. I came from a privileged home. My father was a wealthy man, owned a lot of real estate in Palestine, and the resultant damage was more to him than to me. I was young, didn't know much about the world. He lost everything. All his property and all his businesses were confiscated. He was never compensated for it in any way. But that's about me, not about him. He had come to the States in 1935 because he had business with, he represented the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company for the countries of Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine, and sort of fell in love with the United States at that time, and vowed that he would like to immigrate here at some time. But business kept him away, and in 1948, when we became refugees, we had left Palestine and moved to Lebanon with nothing but the clothes on our back, having lost everything. He started a business in Lebanon and was successful, but he was so discouraged by the political atmosphere in the Arab world and the losses in Palestine that he decided to immigrate to the United States, and so we came along. We came on a boat. I can't tell you it was steerage, it was first class. We stopped in many ports along the way. Were sightseers. When we came to the United States, we didn't see the Statue of Liberty. We landed in Boston. My dad bought a car and he decided to go visit 3 brothers of his that he hadn't seen since he was a child. He had 3 brothers that basically were draft dodgers. They were escaping the Turkish draft during World War I, prior to World War I. And they ran away. They were in their teens. They ran away to Egypt, and from Egypt found their way to the United States. And we never heard from them until basically he came looking for them and found them. So he was driving around. He had one brother, his oldest brother, was living in El Paso, Texas. So he drove down there, and school was about to start. The Texas College of Mines and Metallurgy was changing to become a modern arts and science college. It was located in El Paso. It is now known as Texas Western. It's part of the University of Texas. I didn't have my grades with me. I didn't have any transcript. But they were anxious for students, and I went in and was admitted as a sophomore in college. I didn't disappoint the dean of admission. I did well in school, and subsequently, during the time I was there as a student, my parents settled in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I decided that I wanted to come back home, and I went to the University of Cincinnati, first at the undergraduate school. Being born from privilege, it was a shock for me that now I had to work for a living. So I worked at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Cincinnati, worked as a night x-ray tech for 60 cents an hour. I was given room and board, and I went to school and did that until my second year in medical school at the University of Cincinnati. Now that was the first time I ran across, if you would, some degree of, I don't want to use the word prejudice because it wasn't that. During my 2 years in college, I took an elective in speech, and part of they recommended that for the students that they, as a good exercise for them to make speeches, and there were men's club like the Kiwanis and others, when they lost a speaker and they wanted to fill in the place, they would call the speech department, and the professor would give them a list of students, what their topic was, and they would say, I want this one, and we went. So I got a lot of gigs, so to speak. We got a free meal, and I talked, and my topic was about Palestine and what was happening and what has happened. At one event, a gentleman who happened to be Jewish, and he happened to be on the board of directors of the university, stood up and took exception and started to talk and talk and talk. And unfortunately at that time, the chairman of the speaking department told him to please shut up and sit down. He will invite him some other time, but it was my turn to speak. And I thought that was the end of it, but when I applied to medical school, I got called to the office of the president of the University of Cincinnati, and he told me that we do not discuss controversial subjects at the university. I was too timid to reply to him, but what I thought was, if not at the university, where? But be it as it may, they insisted that if I'm going to give that speech again, I should have a Jewish person or a Zionist to accompany me and to rebut or to give a similar talk. Needless to say, no one came across it, and basically I was gagged. So when the time came to apply to medical school, I wasn't accepted at Cincinnati, but I was accepted at Bowman Gray School of Medicine in North Carolina, but I couldn't afford to go there. So I went to them and said, well, I'm going to go to medical school one way or the other. It'll be easier for me to be here. And subsequently, I was accepted and completed my education at the University of Cincinnati. But my experience was not so good that I never supported the University of Cincinnati financially since then. Following my graduation, or during medical school, I got married, and I had wanted to stay at the Cincinnati General Hospital for my training, but in those days, an intern stipend was $15 a month. And there is a story behind that one of the interns had been stopped for speeding, and when the judge asked him where he worked and what he made, he said, I don't get paid, and I'm an intern at the Cincinnati General Hospital, which is a city hospital. And there was a big public outcry about that, and because his fine was $15, the hospital started giving interns $15 a month. And that's a true story. So my wife was expecting, and I couldn't afford to live on $15 a month. So what do young people do these days? I joined the Army. I applied to, got a commission, and went to intern at Walter Reed Army Hospital. That was interesting because when we got there, they gave us this handbook for officers, and told us, we went to Fort McNair, and we bought, told us what to buy, the insignia, and they told us how to put it together, and then off we went to start work as officers without basic military training. And fortunately, at about that time, Eisenhower was president, and he felt that there were too many men in uniform in Washington, D.C. So he said, from now on, you don't have to wear your uniform, which was great. So we wore civilian clothes during my entire year of internship at Walter Reed. I then applied to the residency and was accepted and took my residency in radiology at Walter Reed. But before that could happen, I had to go down to Texas and learn how to be a soldier. They used to try to teach us how to march in unison, which wasn't very successful, unfortunately. But be it as it may, I completed the few weeks course, went to Walter Reed, and finished my residency. stayed on the staff at Walter Reed until Vietnam started, not Vietnam, Korea started to heat up. And I asked my chief for an assignment abroad. So I was fortunate enough to get an assignment as chief radiologist at Rodriguez Army Hospital in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That was a very nice assignment. I was abroad, I wasn't available to be shipped off, and once a week the Navy needed a radiologist. They sent me a helicopter, and I flew to Roosevelt Roads, read films for an hour, then went snorkeling and scuba diving. So I had a good, and when my time came up before they froze all regular Army commissions, I submitted my resignation from the regular Army, which was granted at the last moment before they froze all resignation. And I came to Fort Wayne to practice radiology and stayed here until I retired and started practice in Auburn, and from Auburn retired, moved back to Fort Wayne just a month ago. So that is my story. So in a great deal, I've been very fortunate, very happy with what I did. I think I did a fairly decent job as a physician. I was involved with the staff. I was once president of the staff, at one time president of the Allen County Fort Wayne Medical Society. So basically, I'm very fortunate and very glad this all happened to me personally. But so that's my life in the United States. Throughout all this time, the events and the injustices in Palestine, and particularly the unfortunate distortion in the public media, and it's only till recently that people have become slightly more aware that things aren't exactly as they have been portrayed in the media, and maybe we can go into that during the question and answer period. So that's my story. I'll leave it to other two gentlemen to go from there.
Good evening. Well, my story is a little bit different. It's, after I graduated, first thing, I was born in Naples, the West Bank, city of Palestine, in the West Bank, Palestine, of course, city of Palestine. I'm second to the youngest of a family of 6. My father, my mother, of course, that make us 8. We're from a middle-class family. And so in 1966 and 1967, I have an older sister and an older brother. They were working in Saudi. And here comes June, and they come in to visit us, of course, for the summer. My mother, my younger brother, and a sister of mine, older than me, we came to greet them in Amman, Georgia. And my father was already in Amman, so that's when the war started. So overnight, we became almost homeless. I have a brother, sister, with suitcases, and the rest of the family with no home. So luckily, my father had a small clothing business in Amman, so that was he did his business. That was our home, our place where we worked. Till we find a place to rent, of course, we did. Gone, went to school. I was in 10th grade then. I always had a job in Georgia. It's not, we have to, but when you look at it in a situation where we're in, everybody have to help, everybody have to pitch in, one way or another. Graduated from high school, prior to graduation, I should say, we lived not too far from the American consulate. So I thought I'll try my luck and see if I could get a visa before graduating. Knocked at the door, went there for the application, me and a few other cousins of mine, and a couple of neighborhood kids. And mysteriously, they did give us a visa. So the only thing I have to do is to graduate from high school, of course, to come here. And high school in Jordan, at that time, take 2 different exams to graduate. One of them, you have to pass all the classes in the school and finish in 12 years. When you're done with all that stuff, you have to go take a national exam. And if you don't pass that, you will repeat the whole year. So luckily I did. I passed it. And, but before I knew that I passed it, I had my suitcase packed and on an airplane to New York. And the reason, I thought when I get to New York, I would decide whether to go to Lebanon, Tennessee, or Boston, Massachusetts, because I know people there. I thought I did. People I wrote and so on. And, but on the airplane, I met a gentleman my age, that he was one of those wealthy Jordanians. And his father was one of those King Hussein cronies. And yeah, everything planned for him in Boston, Massachusetts, like a hotel to stay in, a ride to Boston. So I thought that guy became my best friend in there. So I knew I was going to Boston then. And his family, they thought I was the next thing to slice bread when they saw me and their son, and we'd take care of each other, of course. Prior, by the way, to coming to Boston, in Jordan, you know, there's the Palestinians in the West Bank and the Jordanians. When I bought my airline ticket, I started having some cold feet. So I went to return my ticket. I went to the travel agent and I told him, hey, I don't think I can afford to go there. I don't want to go. So what do you mean? We can't take this ticket back. And besides, you know, you'll have more opportunity in the States. You know, this is not your home. When I heard that, I went and told my father, and he said, whatever it takes, you go into America. So a cousin of mine actually dropped me at the airport because my father was locked down time to go to his work. So finally, I arrived in Boston, Massachusetts. I wasn't really 17. I was born in June. I was here the 1st of June. I didn't know what holidays all about. I didn't know the day of the week. I was so disoriented. But we came, this gentleman, his name Shihab, then his family had reservations for him at the Cobble Plaza Hotel. And I walked to that hotel and they have a Mary Kay convention. I said, oh my God. So there's always good looking people in America. You know, all I need is a bucket and go collect my cash. So, well, reality sets then, you know? And the way we live back home, we have, you know, the room where we congregate and the room where we would sleep. So in the evening, you take your mattress, you put on the floor and you sleep. We're very humble.